and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum. We're still here.
I am the returning Ann Northrup.
Welcome back, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you to Marin for taking over last week and doing her usual fine job.
So what happened this week? You might have noticed there were devastating losses in the U.S. elections with very dire consequences for LGBTQ rights.
Especially if we lose the House in addition to the Senate and the presidency.
There is no way to sugarcoat it.
Well, but we hung on to our one out U.S. Senator. More on that later. We did have some breakthrough LGBTQ wins, including the first out trans member of the U.S. House. Deal with that, yep. Republicans, and the first out LGBTQ Congress member from the South.
And exit polls found that Harris increased the share of the LGBTQ vote for Democrats.
Significantly. To what end? Whatever. Here, a few more little triumphs. In North Carolina, anti-LGBTQ bigot Mark Robinson was vanquished by Josh Stein for governor. Will he now be the Attorney General of the United States?
No. And of course, Aileen Canada will be going to the Supreme Court.
Of course, but I predict an administration job for Mark Robinson.
Well, we can debate how much all those millions of dollars on anti-trans ads had, what effect they had. But Senator John Fetterman, the Democrat senator, U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, had choice words for Republicans who attack trans and gay kids for political advantage.
Well, one of the trans kids being attacked by newly reelected Senator Ted Cruz from Texas was Mac Beggs. You'll remember his story when we give you more details. But he is suing Cruz for misusing his image in an anti-trans ad.
And while we still have some federal judges on our side, one ordered the U.S. Defense Department to cover gender-affirming surgeries.
Shocking. A Catholic pastor in Michigan has fired a veteran gay music director, and the pews are rebelling.
A record number of books were banned last year, and 40% of them had LGBTQ themes.
Have we reached the point where there will be no more books?
Well, we're getting there.
The expense of MPOX vaccines is hampering prevention.
And I finally saw Robert Downey Jr. In his Broadway debut, and we'll talk about that.
By the way, I am bulking up.
Whoa!
To fight back against the Republicans. I know. Put those guns away. That's what 2 years of going to the gym will do for you.
We're all going to have to get in shape.
Yeah.
In better shape.
Yeah. All right, so people are in mourning. Andy's wearing a black suit. I refuse. I will only go as far as navy because while I spent some hours...
This is navy blue.
Is it? Oh, it has pinstripes, too.
Yeah.
Wait, is it navy or... No, it's black.
I think it's navy, but all right.
Well, it's darker than my shirt.
Okay, look, so what can you say except that the Trump victory was a victory for misogyny, racism, anti-LGBTQ prejudice, especially transphobia, xenophobia, isolationism, and despoilation of the environment, among other things.
Well, those are certainly the consequences of the victory, but I think the core of the victory was fear and anger, as Claire McCaskill said. Here's the thing. There are many, many reasons for this. We all have our own interpretations. The thing that struck me this morning, Wednesday, the day after the election when we are taping, is we all sort of got sucked in by the joy of the Harris campaign. We talked about how it was the great...
After the sure defeat under Joe Biden.
It was the greatest presidential campaign ever run.
It was decent, but not enough.
But it was about joy. It was about looking forward. It was about laughter. And it totally underestimated the fear and anger on the other side, particularly the anger.
Now, I'm not trying to rationalize it or sugarcoat it, but obviously this happens around the world. When people are unhappy, they vote for the other, and it's generally the other guy.
Well, completely. And the misogyny, it just reeks of misogyny and racism. But I think we totally underestimated the anger on the other side and did not deal with it or offer anything.
As I always say, things were so bad in 2008. We elected a black man as president of the United States. None of us ever thought that was going to happen in our lifetimes or ever in this country because it's so racist.
Sure.
So but it was a horrible fiscal crisis, sick of the war in Iraq under George W. Bush. So we elected a black guy. And, this time, we came out of a bad period in the country, very high inflation, those kinds of things which hit people very selfish about how they vote. They're entitled to. Everybody's entitled to vote how they want to vote. And they were even willing to elect a monster. If there had been sort of a quote-unquote normal Republican candidate, he or she might have won 49 states like Reagan did.
Or not. Or perhaps Kamala would have beaten a normal Republican.
No, we don't know. We don't know.
No, but I think it was a real. It's always a wake-up call, but to have us get so lulled into a state of complacency. We weren't complacent, but we really believed that she had a very good chance of taking this, and that we would take the Senate, and we would take the House, and we would do this and that and the other, because we thought the politics of joy and forward-looking would be the answer. But these people who went the other way, they weren't buying it. And they said...
Hate seems to be stronger than love. And of course, a lot of these people just want to stick it to us.
Yeah, but I don't think it was entirely about hate. I think it was about, you're full of nonsense. I would use stronger words. You're on your own cloud, and you're not doing anything for us. And this guy, at least, is more concrete in whatever he's doing. His stuff may be total baloney, but he at least is looking us in the eye. You're just off on some trip, and they didn't buy it.
But the litany of things I said at the beginning, and of course not all Trump voters endorse those things, but they will be the new law of the land. They will implement this Project 2025, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and not so, and mostly because the people around Trump will insist on it, and they will just go ahead and bulldoze and do it. And he is not, I think, going to be so involved.
And, there were also the voter concerns over endless wars, which they don't particularly relate to or want.
Well, nobody does.
What do you mean? Why do we do it all the time then?
Well, because we think there are reasons.
All right.
Because isolationism does not seem like an answer.
But again, I will say that the LGBTQ Vote NBC News exit poll, Harris led Trump 86-12 among LGBT voters, a 15% improvement on Biden's 2020 performance, although that figure was contested. 8% identified as LGBT, a record high. But again, Republicans spent $215 million on anti-trans ads to win.
Yes, which...
$215 million just on anti-trans ads.
All running football games.
Which is a horror. Whatever effect it had, it certainly had a horrible effect on trans people.
Well, and I think it's more upsetting and destructive than just anti-gay ads. I think the trans issue at this point is still deeply upsetting to a great many people. We have not succeeded in educating them or inuring them to this, but man, wait till they get a hold of Sarah McBride.
And you with those muscles better watch out.
Women can't have muscles?
I'm just saying, you start going to women's rooms with those muscles, they're gonna, this is what happens to women.
Yes, absolutely.
They get a little butch, and it's over for them. And they get out of my room.
Well, there's a story this week of the woman, the cisgender woman, who was arrested for something and thrown in the men's prison because the guards, without examining her or anything, just decided she was male.
Because they are so full of this hatred that is instilled by Fox News and by these ads. To do that. Now let's talk.
It was not a trans woman. It was not anything other than a cisgender woman who was butch and therefore perceived wrongly.
Right. So we have lost the Senate, and we don't know about the House as we tape right now. But let's talk about, before we get to some of the other candidates, the consequences of these Republican advances. The loss of the federal courts for the rest of our lives, and probably yours.
And not just the Supreme Court, which is likely to, I mean, I picture Trump getting Alito and Thomas to resign and replacing them with 35-year-olds.
They're dying to resign and want to be replaced because they're strategic. I wish Sotomayor had retired. Maybe she should still do it while we control the Senate, and he could put somebody in. Seriously,
I understand.
For another 30. Let's be more strategic.
I'm not counting on Manchin voting for anyone Biden nominates.
Well, RFK Jr. in charge of health policy, and that's the end of health and science. Extreme MAGAs heading departments. The end of the federal prosecutions of Trump, although he's still going to be sentenced in the November 26 New York State case. The filibuster, which we've hated, becomes of some value to Democrats.
Right, so we don't want them to get rid of it.
Not
Right?
now. And
whose ox is gored now?
Well, Mitch McConnell said they had no plans to, but there will be pressure to implement what is now, and we're going to keep saying it, a fascist agenda.
Well, they're the ones who got rid of filibuster-level votes for judgeships, and they've done very well with that. And yes, they could extend that.
No, we got rid of it for judgeships. They got rid of it for the Supreme Court. And then anti-LGBTQ amendments. Now, the House has been passing those all along and have been stopped by the Senate, and maybe the filibuster can still stop some of those things. And of course, you're going to have this tremendous growth of the kleptocracy and the corruption. Can a Democrat win if they get their own populist and stand up to corporate rule? I don't know. Harris ran to the center, and all those never Trump Republicans. But we can Monday morning.
It's too soon. Too soon, Andy.
We lived through the Reagan Revolution, which was very.
We lived through Nixon and the Vietnam War.
Many of our brothers and sisters did not live through the Reagan Revolution.
Well,
that was when the AIDS crisis went all over the world.
Many of us have the privilege of being alive and healthy and having a roof over our head and food to eat. But many, many people do not, and they are going to be hit severely hard by policies of this new administration.
Right. All right. Should we talk about what happened with some of the key LGBTQ races?
Yes, because we have good news there. And really, the idea that out-trans Sarah McBride, a state senator from Delaware, close to the Biden family, is now going to the U.S. House of Representatives as Delaware's one member of the House is just so delicious, it's hard to imagine.
Now, if the Republicans keep control, what restroom is she going to be allowed to use?
Good question.
These are issues.
Yeah.
I mean,
they'll probably make her go 3 buildings away to use some janitor's restroom.
Right. And then Texas State Rep. So that's huge. But
really huge because, and we've been saying this for years, representation in person makes a huge difference. We've seen it for decades as we, members of our community, have been elected to positions all over the country. Now we have a out-trans member of the U.S. House of Representatives. They're going to have to deal with her every single day. And I just can't wait for that. Marjorie Taylor Greene
is going to be calling her him.
Yes, and she was reelected, as was Lauren Boebert, and they're going to have to deal with Sarah McBride on the floor of the House of Representatives.
And they're going to have to deal with Julie Johnson, a Texas state representative who was the first openly LGBTQ member of the U.S. Congress from the South.
Yes, we actually have increased the number of LGBTQ members of the House.
Yes. we're still far from our representation in society. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
It's not 8% of the Congress. We apparently are 8% of the
No,
electorate.
but we're getting there. So Emily Randall from the state of Washington is leading in her race and expected to win. She will be the first Latina lesbian in Congress. Good for you, Emily. Thank you for running.
And your pal, our pal, Tammy Baldwin, it looks like held on in Wisconsin.
That was a squeaker.
Did better than, of course, than Harris did in the state.
Well, that's happening in a lot of places, and it's really interesting. People really did split their votes in this election. You know, Ruben Gallego is going to get elected to the Senate from Arizona while the state goes for Trump. Tammy Baldwin gets reelected in Wisconsin while the state goes for Trump.
Right. Arizona hasn't been called yet, but
no, but
it's not looking good.
No, it's not. But that has happened in several states around the country where the voters have split their votes.
And in the hate state of Tennessee, which has a good reputation for being that because of all the anti-LGBTQ legislation, Gabby Salinas is the first out LGBTQ woman elected to the Tennessee legislature.
Yes, very nice. And in Kentucky, lesbian Katuna Heron,
I think she identifies as genderqueer.
okay,
Yeah.
is the first out genderqueer person elected to the state Senate there in Kentucky. By the way, I should apologize. 2 weeks ago when I was here and talking about Hannah Gadsby's new show, I referred to them as she. Sloppy, lazy pronouns, but Hannah uses they, them pronouns, and I apologize for having mischaracterized them.
And then in Iowa, Amy Wichtendahl has made history as the first out trans person elected to the Iowa legislature. She was already a member of the Hiawatha City Council, the first transgender lawmaker there. So Iowa.
And we're celebrating a number of wins, again, in North Carolina, where there was ticket splitting because Trump won the state, but Josh Stein beat the heinous Mark Robinson for
That's
governor.
Josh Stein, and he's a Jew in North Carolina. Now,
Hey,
North Carolina...
one of my best friends is a Jew from North Carolina.
North Carolina, in Greensboro, they had a Jewish mayor in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So, but still, it's always been an issue in the South.
Well, sure, but it's also been a mixture. Now, Michelle Morrow, who we talked about in North Carolina, the extreme right-winger who was running for superintendent of schools, got beaten. And a right-wing Republican lost the attorney general job in North Carolina, too. So that's three major positions in North Carolina that went to Democrats while Trump was winning the state.
And a lot of our incumbents did well. Lisa Grafstein remains the only out LGBTQ member of the North Carolina Senate. Representative Sharice Davids has won re-election in Kansas. She remains the only openly LGBTQ Native American in Congress. And Representative Angie Craig remains the first and only out LGBTQ member of Congress from Minnesota.
And State Representative Zoe Zephyr in Montana, who had that huge fight with the legislature, got kicked out.
Silenced.
For saying that they had blood on their hands. Yes. Got reelected. So she remains in the State House in Montana.
Now, some gays lost. There was a Republican lesbian, Allison Esposito, who tried to beat incumbent Pat Ryan upstate New York, not that far upstate, and she lost, thank goodness.
We were hopeful that Malcolm Kenyatta could win a statewide Auditor General seat in Pennsylvania, but he has lost.
And there was an out gay Republican running for the United States Senate in New Jersey.
Oh, he was a mess.
Curtis Bashaw. I watched an interview with him. He was so feckless.
He went to Moms for Liberty for an endorsement.
Pathetic. The seat was held by Bob Menendez, who resigned in disgrace, and the winner was Democrat Andy Kim, an
Asian
American.
Eric Sorensen, out member of the House of Representatives, is likely reelected from Illinois. A new state senator in Georgia. You didn't
No.
say his name. Rashawn Kemp, first gay black male in Georgia to join the legislature. And Richie Torres got reelected to the U.S. House by some astronomical number, like 93% or something.
Wow.
And we're Colorado and California repealed their same-sex marriage bans.
This is big. These were constitutional bans on same-sex marriage. So if the Supreme Court gets this case that is being moved up to the Supreme Court and says, oh no, the Obergefell decision was wrong, states can start banning it again, well, at least you can still get married in California and Colorado.
A new lesbian member of the state Senate in Wisconsin, again, as Trump is winning these states, Democrat out LGBTQ people are winning from the other side. State Senator Kristen Alfheim is one in Wisconsin.
And then there was the abortion rights referenda. 7 of 10 states that had these referenda protected the right to choose. Now, of course, in Florida, it fell short. It needed 60%. It got 57%. But
Not enough in the Ron DeSantis land.
It also passed in New York. This thing we worried about, this Proposition 1.
You worried about it.
That protects LGBTQ rights. But they ran a huge campaign against it, saying it's going to protect national origin, and you're going to have to give benefits to illegal aliens, was their phrase. So anyway, New York, Maryland, Montana, Missouri, and Colorado.
Missouri passed an abortion rights law.
Missouri voted to increase the minimum wage and paid sick time. Now, here's the thing, and then they elect Josh Hawley. You owe me a drink.
Never.
And I could use one. But anyway, so yeah, and Nebraska. So now the U.S. Senate will have 2 black women serving.
Angela Alsa Brooks and
Delaware's Lisa Blunt Rochester.
Yes,
this is the first time that's happened.
Alsa Brooks from Maryland. Yeah,
very sad to lose Sherrod Brown.
Very sad.
Sherrod in Ohio.
From his seat. He didn't die. He lost his race.
Well, it's a morning. It was the most expensive Senate race in the country.
Beaten by a total creep.
Did outperform Harris. A crypto freak. I mean, and the crypto people, currency people, spent $40 million alone on the race. This is what
the right wing has bought.
A lot of money.
Has bought the United States government.
Harris outraised Trump, though.
Well, Elon Musk put a ton of money behind Trump.
Look, Mike Bloomberg put $50 million on behalf of the Democrats in the last week.
So he says.
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't notice. It's a rounding error for him.
Yeah.
And folks, why do you put up with people keeping billions of dollars and not have a progressive taxation in this country so that you could fund public services and you wouldn't be worried about losing your health care?
We're not going to get rid of any of that for the next few years. Mondaire Jones was trying to return to Congress as an out gay black man, but he lost to Lawler, who took his seat 2 years ago.
And let's remember how what's his name? Vance, the vice president, soon to be the president, of course.
JD, yes.
JD Vance went down this week with a long interview with Joe Rogan. I mean, you've heard this because it made a lot of news. But he said it was very anti-trans, and then he said, but we're going to win the gay guy vote, the normal gay guy vote, because they just want to be left the hell alone. Well, you didn't.
No, you
whatever
didn't.
the hell the normal gay guy vote means, of course.
Yep. But I was also unhappy to see Danica Patrick, the great race car driver, endorsing Trump. What's that all about?
And Megyn Kelly, who Trump called a nasty woman, but they all just flocked to power.
There was some worry that trans voters would have trouble voting because of new stricter ID laws across the country in various states.
Yes.
No reports yet on any of that happening. Now, the big thing was the Russians phoning in bomb threats all over Georgia.
Yes. to just obviously disrupt the vote, and may have succeeded to some extent because people end up going home if they can't stay.
Now, about all this, these attacks on trans people to try to scare Republican voters into electing Trump and everyone else, John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, came out condemning that.
Yes. Well, what he said was, these ads blanketed all the states, the swing states. He said, it doesn't make you a man to pick on trans or gay kids. It makes you and he said the full word, a-hole. I was very blunt about it, and that's what's true. And what's her name, Dana Bash there was going, oh, but what about parents who are concerned, blah, 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 blah.
And it was nice to see a little celebrity moment. Chloe Grace Moretz, who's a very prominent actress, came out in a pro-Kamala online post as a gay woman, talking about the need to protect the LGBTQ community. She was one of the stars of the Miseducation of Cameron Post. Yes. Remember that?
Yes.
The sort of conversion therapy comedy. Well, it turns out she now identifies as a gay woman.
Well, speaking of celebrities, Donald Trump Jr. In the last week of the campaign claimed the only reason that Diddy, was arrested was so that Harris could blackmail all the celebrities who went to his parties into endorsing her. He said this.
Get ready for 4 years of this, people.
Whoa.
And then there's Rudy Giuliani, the comic relief, if it weren't so tragic, of this election.
80 years old.
Yeah. Hey, what's wrong with 80 years old?
That's right. Our president is about to be 80. Our next president.
Some of us are closing in on it. Well, Rudy, as you may know, was ordered to pay like $148 million to the poll workers he had trashed in
Ruby
Georgia.
Freeman Moss and her daughter Shay Moss, who terrorized them.
So the marshals show up at his New York apartment to collect all his stuff, which is certainly not worth that much, but just to get what they can. And it turns out he's cleaned it out.
Put it in a storage locker in Ronkonkoma, way out on Long Island. But he's flaunting it. He's driving around in the car.
Yeah, a Mercedes convertible, which he drove to the polling place in Florida.
And he won't rule out running for mayor of the city of New York.
That's ridiculous. That is.
You say it's ridiculous,
yes,
but everybody's running. Well, I had a guy who used to work, who was one of his top aides, just a few months ago.
Don't point your finger at me.
I'm sorry. A few months ago, especially you, a few months ago, say, what we really need now is Rudy back. I mean, I said, are you out of your mind? I said,
people are not that stupid. They're pretty stupid, but they're not that stupid.
There's no stupidity in electing Donald Trump as president of the United States.
This is New York City.
And Trump gained some votes in New York as well.
Yes, he
lost
did.
Overwhelmingly.
Yes, he did. But I have more faith in the people of New York City, strange as this place is, than to think they would elect Rudy Giuliani.
Well, they elected Ted Cruz, and Cruz showed trans wrestler Mac Beggs. We've talked about him a lot over the years in his ads against Colin Allred. And Beggs plans to sue Cruz for unauthorized use of his image. In 2018, Beggs won, the interscholastic.
He was a wrestler.
He's a wrestler.
And he was ordered by the state of Texas to wrestle against girls because they said, you're really a girl and you cannot wrestle against boys, as he desperately wanted to do. So, of course, he won all his wrestling matches against girls. There's a wonderful short film that's been made about it some years ago when this was going on.
2018.
I bet if you Google Mac Beggs short film, you can find it. It's really worth watching, and just tragic that he's still being dragged around like this.
He said the Republican Party messed up and they know what they're doing. Pushing false narratives and defaming people. But that's all they do.
I have to inject another little comic relief moment that happened in the election here in New York. A Republican running for state assembly who is known as a serial sperm donor went charging into the polls and was harassing everybody in there because he's a maniac. And they dragged him out and arrested him.
Good.
Yeah.
In Texas, the wicked Attorney General Ken Paxton is suing a second doctor for providing gender-affirming care to multiple patients. Paxton is charging an El Paso physician with falsifying medical records and billing records to mislead pharmacies and insurance providers. Paxton labeled the banned care dangerous and experimental, supported by no scientific evidence, which is a lie. Doctors convicted of these by Paxton face losing their medical licenses and penalties of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's really awful.
And of course, Ted Cruz and Trump said during the campaign they would push for a national ban on trans care for youth.
I think that's about it as far as any kind of election or politician-related
Yes,
stuff.
let's go to Traverse City, Michigan.
Okay, where Fred Szymanski,
Yes.
I made up that
Very good.
pronunciation, was the music director for 34 years at a Catholic parish.
St. Francis Catholic Church.
And he was fired by the pastor there for marrying his partner when he was
4 years ago.
and he was on the eve of retirement.
He's very discreet. 4 years ago, they found out about it, you're fired. But
the choir refused to sing when this happened.
They wore black
Yep.
and refused to sing. And one of them said, look, I'm divorced. Do I get thrown out next? Seriously.
Probably.
So Fred was going to retire, but the church's cruelty knows no. And where is the Pope in this, who is supposed to care so much about people? You know.
Well, one person who cares about people is Jason Kelsey, brother of Travis Kelsey, the great Kansas City Chiefs star and boyfriend of Taylor Swift. So that is Jason there on the left attending a Penn State, Ohio State football game in Pennsylvania, State College, Pennsylvania. And some smart aleck guy.
Hey, Kelsey, how does it feel that your brother is a faggot for dating Taylor Swift?
Now, this is nothing but social media provocation. Yeah. This is a guy who goes up to him, holding his phone out to him, says this to him because he wants him to react so he can post it and get 10 million
So what happens
views.
to the guy's phone?
Jason, who is a recently retired football player and a very good one, goes over to him, grabs the phone, throws it on the ground, stomps on it.
And yells back, who's the faggot?
Not yet,
All right.
not yet. The guy comes after him and says, please, give me my phone back.
Oh. So he
want my phone. So he says, yeah, who's the faggot now?
Well, for which Jason has apologized.
I don't think he should apologize.
He later apologized. He says we shouldn't meet
hate with hate.
There you go.
Look, I applaud Jason for what he did. He didn't hurt anybody. He just stomped the guy's phone because of what was an obvious baiting provocation.
Yeah.
It wasn't an innocent approach by the fan.
Right.
It wasn't anything but a pre-planned, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go after him. We're going to film the whole thing, and we're going to bait him into reacting.
Well, as the DA of Philadelphia said, don't F with us. Anyway, speaking of hate in the District of Columbia, 10 to 15 individuals attacked Sebastian Thomas Robles Lascaro, a 22-year-old Colombian model, after a misunderstanding on a line at a McDonald's. One of the attackers shouted anti-gay slurs. The attack left Lascaro hospitalized, and he said that both the emergency personnel and the cops were unsympathetic. He'd been pummeled by 5 to 10 people, had food, trash, drinks thrown at him, and they've been raising money for him to cover his medical bills.
It sounded like one member of the mob just threw a slur at him, like faggot, and that inspired the rest of the mob to, let's just beat the hell out of this guy.
There was some misunderstanding on the line, and then they said, you have to apologize for whatever he did, and he said, I didn't do anything, and then that was it.
At a slightly different level, but also in D.C., there is a new controversy at the National Archives Museum. Its leader, appointed by Biden, announced that she was going to diversify the collection of items and the displays and broaden it. So what did she do? She removed a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. She took away
who's in the place? Elon Musk?
Took away a display of the internment of Japanese people during World War II. Took away a display about mistreatment of Native people in the United States and substituted a picture of Richard Nixon meeting Elvis.
Well,
National Archives Museum.
If you want to see diversity in a museum display, go to the New York Public Library. They have something right on the first floor. It's free, right there on 42nd Street and Fifth Avenue, and it's called Treasures, and it is so diverse, and big James Baldwin section now, but it's got everything, race, sexual orientation, all that stuff.
There used to be a display of the patent of the birth control pill at the National Archives Museum. That has been replaced by a display of the patent of the bump stock.
No. Who is this person?
This woman, I didn't even write down her name. I was so disgusted. I didn't want to say it. It's been described as disgraceful and anticipatory obedience to the new masters in Washington.
Well, beyond disgusting is what happened in Athens, Georgia. San Coleman, 48 years old, was murdered, brutally killed on a walking trail, identified as a gay man. Family was first told that he'd fallen on the trail about a mile from his home. He died in the hospital, but it is now being looked at as a homicide and a hate crime.
Yeah. In Rancho Santa Margarita, California, at a Catholic high school, football players there have been charged with sexually assaulting their teammates. This is a Catholic high school. A 15-year-old is suing, and the coach has been put on leave.
They say things to the people that they assault, like, you're on the football team now. This is the way it goes.
You knew what you were signing up for. This is bro culture in the U.S.
Well,
now, I don't want to paint with a broad brush.
Well, like frat hazing.
Absolutely, and it's gone on forever, and it's continuing to go on.
As is book banning. PEN America reported that there was a record number of books banned in 96 school districts across the country. 40% had LGBTQ themes. Many classics continue to be removed. Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, one of my favorites in high school, and I went to a Catholic school. 16,000 book bans in all. Florida alone, 4,500. It's the dumbing down of America.
I think we need one-way tickets out of here. Boeing, which is
love it or leave it,
has had its problems over the last year or two, but just settled a strike.
Yes.
But they have decided to merge their DEI operations into their human relations department to sort of elide the fact that they have any interest in DEI.
All right, here's some good news. A federal judge in Maine, appointed by Obama, ruled that the U.S. Defense Department violated the Fifth Amendment by denying 2 trans women gender-affirming surgery through their departmental insurance coverage. Now, there was actually a law that said this cannot be used for sex gender changes, is the phrase.
Yep.
But they successfully argued that that was discrimination. They say it's available to cisgender people, like when you get a breast removed, you get surgery, and it's gender related. Mm-hmm. Come on. So that's how they won. And this was a case brought by LGBTQ legal advocates and defenders.
Now, this is a decision at the district court level in Maine. I suspect that we will be hearing more about this well, we'll see. As the Defense Department changes hands in January, this may be revisited. And congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers, which won the World Series. They are reputed to have the best Pride Night in baseball. And it turns out that some of the co-owners are there, Billie Jean King on the left and her wife, Ilana Kloss, on the right. And in the middle, Eric Braverman, who is vice president of the Dodgers, out gay vice president. We've talked about him in the past. He married his partner on the field at Dodger Stadium some years ago. So
2022.
Yeah, so if you were wondering who you should have been rooting for in the World Series, turns out it might have been the Dodgers.
We are a long way from the days of Tommy Lasorda. He was the anti-gay coach who ended up having a gay son who died of AIDS. And of course, Glenn Burke he tortured, who was out gay, first out gay player. And Billy Beane was on the team later.
Yeah.
The late Billy Beane.
All right, recently late Billy Beane. International news.
Well, the new Conservative Party leader is a black woman.
In the UK.
Is that progress in the United Kingdom? Yes. She, Kemi Badenoch, she was once the Equalities Minister, but she blocked legislation banning conversion therapy, extremely anti-trans, and the only gay group she ever met with is an anti-trans gay group. She was recorded once calling trans women men, in a leaked recording. So a culture warrior. So no move to the center for the Tories.
No, doesn't look like it. And a terrible story out of Tijuana, Mexico, where reputedly a drug cartel murdered and dismembered a beloved owner of a gay bar there, the Sodoma nightclub, Omar Guido Chavez, 50 years old, regarded as a great friend to everybody, a great boss, and an excellent person, was just targeted and murdered and mutilated by this drug cartel.
Horrible.
Yeah.
All right. AIDS health news?
Well, wait a minute, one second. Oh, here's the story of the butch cis woman who was put in a men's prison. Turns out it was in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
So it's in international news. And in Israel, the International Lesbian and Gay Association, I may have a different word with those initials now, has canceled the application of the LGBT group in Israel, Aguda, to host the World Conference in 2026 and has suspended their membership in ILGA, saying that their support of what's going on in Gaza, I guess, and Lebanon and whatever is a violation of the ILGA Constitution.
All right. Health news, the cost of MPOX vaccines. You know, originally we got them all free. But the cost, it's $300 a shot now, and you got to get two, is hampering prevention efforts in the United States with the new variant and the big outbreak in Africa. People with HIV are especially vulnerable. Private insurance is not required to cover vaccines until January 1st. How about speeding it up, President Biden? In the meantime, community clinics say they can't afford it to give it out. The CDC still recommends 2 shots a month apart. The agency is not yet recommending boosters, despite some evidence that immunity wanes. And the U.S. has seen 2,400 cases of the Clade 2 version this year, compared with 1,000 this time last year. And it's the Clade 1 that is even more dangerous.
Well, there are 2 new cases of the more dangerous one in the UK, but they say they're related. So they don't think it's an outbreak. They think it's restricted.
And of course, it's a horror show in Africa, and we released some. Biden did release a bunch of vaccines, but not nearly enough. Mm-hmm. All right.
Sorry that my phone keeps going off.
Okay.
It's supposed to be silenced, but there it is. Yes.
We told you about the passing of beloved Broadway actor, out-gay Gavin Creel, very young. They're going to host a memorial for him. You can sign up for this. It's free at the St. James Theater on Monday, December 2nd at 4 o'clock. And I'll put all this information into, you have to email them and everything. And they're going to dim the lights for him on December 3rd, but that'll be in our email. So if you want to sign up for our email, go to gayusatv.org. We're not going to ask you for money this week because you've been given so much to the political campaigns. I'm sure you're spent for a few days, but...
it's never out of season to support Gay USA.
Correct. We do need your support to keep going. Thank you. And we appreciate your support.
A couple of movies of interest coming to streaming channels. This week, in fact, November 7th, the day after we're taping, on Amazon Prime, now known as Prime, but I still think of it as Amazon Prime, My Old Ass.
Oh, yeah.
Very well-reviewed movie starring Aubrey Plaza, who has become quite a favorite. And it's the story of an 18-year-old girl who somehow meets her older self, and Aubrey being her older self. And the 18-year-old has a crush on a friend, a girl. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how it turns out, but that might be worth checking out. It's gotten good reviews.
I think Marin recommended it on this program.
Oh, there you go. But one that we saw that we highly recommend, coming to Netflix next week on the 13th, Amelia Perez.
Oh, yes. Terrific movie.
Wonderful, crazy.
About a transgender drug kingpin in Mexico.
Yes, fiction, not cutting up gay bar
Wonderful
owners.
cast. All the female cast won the Cannes Best Actress Award.
And the film won the jury prize at Cannes, and we enjoyed it immensely.
Really, I mean, it was unexpected. And it's a musical.
It's tremendously original.
They break out in song
all the time
and dance. Sounds crazy, but it's really good.
Really good. Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, and the trans woman. Really, really good. Amelia Perez, Netflix, November 13th.
Okay, so I finally saw Robert Downey Jr.'s Broadway debut at Lincoln Center as a cranky, famous author in a play called McNeil. And it's about he's like a Nobel Prize winning, right at the start, he wins the Nobel Prize. But it's about his relationship with AI and how he uses that. And I'm not going to break anything. Now, my expectations were very low based on the, almost universal pans of this. It may even win a set award because it's an amazingly innovative set. And it does raise some thoughtful issues. So it's not about the modern creative process. And Andrea Martin is in it. And she's very much fun as his agent.
Always.
Yeah.
Congratulations to those reviving the Mix Film Festival here in New York. Mix Fest 2024 will play November 21st through 23rd at the Quad Cinema on 13th Street. It's an experimental film festival that was started by Sarah Schulman and Jim Hubbard years ago. It sort of faded away, but now it's being brought back. And so if you're interested in experimental film, this is absolutely the thing to do.
Jim Hubbard, who documented the early days, and not even the early days, all along of the AIDS activism and the AIDS crisis.
Sure.
Right.
Look, the two of them did the AIDS Oral History Project, which is an invaluable resource in spite of my skepticism when they announced it.
Including an interview with Ann Northrup.
Well, with a couple hundred people, members of ACT UP, and these are lengthy, hours-long interviews available both as a transcript and on video. ActUporalhistory.org, I think, is the website. You can get lost in that for days.
So I'm going to see a play this weekend, but we'll let you know about it now. Matthew LeBlanca in a play called Communion, about his real-life dismissal from a Catholic school in Queens, New York.
Wait a minute, didn't we just have a story about that?
Correct, but this happened to him too.
Yeah.
And, he's teaching at a public school now. It's going to be at The Cell, right there on West 23rd Street down the block.
Well, here we are with 10 minutes left.
Well, let's go home. And, I thought after, it was so devastating yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought of just sitting here and staring at you. I don't mean you, but people.
You suggested that. I suggest
playing classical music and with a dark screen the way they did when Soviet leaders died.
And I suggested we play our theme song from the top of the show, which is called Danse Macabre.
Right.
which would be appropriate. But yeah, I think we both ended up going to sleep early last night because it was so depressing and so enervating. And then, of course, woke up in the middle of the night, had to turn it on to see what was happening, and it just more and more discouraging and depressing and terrible. I mean, there are bright lights. We've told you about some elections of LGBTQ people and passing of abortion rights amendments and things.
And it's such a mix because these states that elect these horrible people also vote for abortion rights, vote for minimum wages, vote for other things. And California, which is supposed to be so wonderful, and yes, they restored same-sex marriage rights there, they voted against making slavery illegal. When I say that, I'm talking about involuntary servitude for prisoners, and they voted that down.
Chain gangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a mix and therefore a little hard to read. And much as we have been yelling about Project 2025,
yes.
All year, and the 900-page blueprint that tells us exactly what they're going to do, it's still a little hard to imagine that they're going to carry that all out.
Well, he's got literally 300 executive orders drafted to sign in short order.
And thousands of people they've been training to take over government jobs when they fire all the current civil servants who they want to get rid of because they have ethics.
Now, Biden can do whatever he wants for the next couple of months because he's got immunity from criminal prosecution. I'm not kidding. And he ought to use his powers as much as he can to try to solidify things. People are saying he ought to pardon these asylum seekers and who are being prosecuted and
that
things.
Would be nice.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. Do it, Joe. You've got the power. Use it. They would.
Yes, they would. And that's discouraging on an ongoing basis that the right wing is shameless and fearless, as we have said often. They will do whatever, and we are not so bold. And we still have tiny control of the U.S. Senate. That could be helpful. There are empty judgeships. Appoint more judges.
Yes, quickly and get them confirmed. I mean, there are ways to stop it, but get around that. You've got to do that.
You have 2 months left in office. Should the Biden people go to the inauguration, given Trump's boycott of the Biden inauguration?
It would be very hard to sit through when you've been called all these names all the time, and been called disgusting, and I want to arrest you, and you're a criminal.
And you can expect more of the same in the Trump inaugural speech.
How about he goes, Joe goes and goes, boo, boo. How about some reaction? Seriously.
It would be nice. I'd love to see that reaction.
Or or go, and if he starts saying crap, just get up and leave.
As we were heading up here today, we were asked by a friend standing there, so are we all going to the Capitol in January to try to stop the certification of the vote? Are we going with weapons and flags and whatever? No, we're not. But
no, we're not. We're not that way.
We're not.
But look, it is also time.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi got reelected in California. She's not giving up.
Only to be getting arrested as soon as he gets in.
Well, doesn't she have immunity as a member of Congress?
No. He's the one with the immunity.
Yeah.
It's grotesque, and we feel like we've lost the country, and for now we have.
We've certainly lost a lot of it. I refuse to say that we've lost the country completely, and they have choices to make. It could be a really, really grim 4 years or beyond because, D Vance is not going to step aside. He's going to want to get in there. It could be a long time. But is that what the country wants? Or will they, as they often have, flip back and forth? A little of this, they get tired of that, they go to the other side. It's not fun.
The structure of the country works against us so deeply. I mean, even though in this case, Trump may have won the
popular vote.
Well, we have to wait till all the California vote comes in.
Yeah, but it does look like he may very well have won the popular vote.
So, but better systems, et cetera. And look, we're this huge, unmanageable country of unhappy people. Basically, I mean, they were hugely unhappy. We're unhappy. We're unhappy now, and it's not like we were so thrilled with the way things were going. So,
well, they are unhappy, and I think we have to take that seriously. They are unhappy, and we have to figure out a way to talk to each other that helps them and helps them enter into a dialogue that can. I know.
Pollyanna.
Yeah, it's me. But I can't help but, I think they have legitimate complaints and concerns about a lot of stuff from their own point of view. But I also think they have been led down the garden path by misinformation and lies.
Well, come on. They want to be misled and lied to. Well, of course, the electorate has always wanted to be lied to. They always want to be told things are going to get better and education is going to get better and this is going to get better. And you're not going to have to pay taxes on your Social Security. And if you believe all that crap.
Yeah, and no, you're not going to have to pay taxes on your Social Security. Your Social Security is just going to be cut.
Right.
That's how they'll do it. They'll
and
just
Medicare
take away.
and all public services are going to be cut. I mean, we are running a huge deficit, and they can just and of course, and you're going to keep letting billionaires keep everything.
But when Trump was in office, after all those complaints like that, he's the one who raised the deficit astronomically.
Sure.
And there's no reason to think he won't do that again.
Sure.
That's his MO. The Republicans get power. They come in with a decent economy from the Democrats. They completely trash it, run up these huge debts. And then the Democrats come in and fix it and hand it over, and then the public gets complacent and says, "Okay, things are okay. We can elect the Republicans," and then they trash it again.
But people don't vote on issues, really.
No.
I mean, if you can take these tests where you can say which candidate lines up with you, and frankly, it's Bernie Sanders for most Americans. Seriously. That's whose issues are the ones who's carrying the water for the kinds of things you say you want.
Well, that's why I think we got suckered into thinking Kamala had a chance for a while, because she is an appealing human being. She was attractive and smiling and joyful and
had a wonderful debate against him that he got so afraid that he wouldn't do it again.
And kept wearing jeans all the time. Did you notice that Kamala wore jeans a lot with her blazers?
Well,
I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, I mean, I have to say it's a different feeling from 1980. It's a different feeling from 2016, but it's bad.
Please, I remember the horror of 1968.
Nixon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. But we survived that.
Did you vote for Hubert Humphrey?
Maybe, or maybe not. No, because I couldn't vote till 72. McGovern was my first vote.
McGovern was my first vote. And I have to say, folks, my only happy vote for president
Well,
ever.
he had some problems, too. But more on that another time, because we've run out of time. We'll see you next week.